Fuck. Woo! Hello, wonderful people at the internet. Today we are going to be reviewing the third season of the Netflix show The Witcher, which is an adaptation of the Witcher books, which I'm reading currently, and also the last season, which will feature Henry Cavill playing Geralt of Rivia, the main character. So, let's get into it. And of course, spoilers for the show, spoilers for the books. If you haven't watched the show, haven't read the books, you know the drill. Click off and come back later if you want to. Okay, so The Witcher Season 3 picks off where Season 2 left off, would you believe it, which is with Geralt and Ciri and Yennefer finally being together, but there being tensions running between them, because Yennefer tried to kill Ciri to get her magic back by making a deal with some sort of demon, Ainel kind of thing. It's a whole thing. But that's the gist of it. That's where we start the show. And then the rest of the season, which is split into two parts, is then adapting the events of Time of Contempt, which is the second novel in the Witcher series, and also, I believe, probably my second favourite. So there's a lot to talk about here, and I'm very excited to get into it. Now, The Witcher has been getting a lot of hate of late because Henry Cavill announced that he was leaving the show and would be replaced in the lead role by Liam Hemsworth. And a lot of people, I'm not up to date on whether a real statement's been given as to why he did it, but a lot of people suspect it was because of deviations from the source material, and so massive, every time the Witcher account posts on Netflix, or not on Netflix, the Netflix Witcher account posts on Instagram, it's just hate comments filling all of the comment section, and I've stopped reading it because it's mind-numbing. It's people just, slander the writers, slander the show, say there's no Witcher without Henry. And after watching this season, I just don't think that's true. For me, at least, this season has been the most enjoyable season of the show so far, and definitely more book accurate than season 2. So I've got a lot of good things to say about it. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Now, I just want to go out there straight away and, say that the acting across the board in this show is superb, and the casting is always incredible. Some new characters were introduced this season, or expanded upon in the case of Dijkstra, because he was in the previous season. So yeah, there's the two spy masters, not spy masters, Dijkstra is the spy master, Philippa is the sorceress, who is the sorceress at court in Redania. They have a whole plot line, and it was one of my favourite things in the show. Both of the actors have just blown it out of the water. I love how they're portraying the characters. Every time when they were on screen, I was happy. It was excellent. And then you've got the main cast, Henry Cavill as Geralt, Anya Chalotra as Yennefer, Freya Allan as Ciri. They are all incredible, as they have always been, and it was really nice this season to see them all act together, because until now, unless you count the end of season 2, but that wasn't really them at their best, was it? Because of the whole murder thing. Seeing them act as a family, seeing their dynamic sort of grow in the first episode, which was the purpose of the first episode, was really nice, and I was really happy watching it. And then other characters of note, you've got Jaskier and Radovid, who have a romance this season, which was really, it made me really happy. I'm so worried for Jaskier, my little Jaskier, because if you've played the games, the Witcher games, then you know that Radovid eventually turns into a psychopath who, burns people alive all the time. He does it all the time, and I just don't want Jaskier to get hurt. I want him to be happy. But they were really nice. I liked seeing them. It was also almost them playing to see who would drop their guard first and reveal themselves, be vulnerable around the other. And so that was really fun to watch. And from the end of season 2, not season 2, part 2 of the season, then it's been set up that there's going to be a whole load of drama between them, because Radovid has now been crowned king of Redania after Vesemir was assassinated. Vesemir was assassinated by Philippa. So that's a whole thing. We've got, if Jaskier is, in a relationship with the King of Redania, then that is either going to be really handy or really detrimental to the story and their progress through it, because that might be a major hurdle if Radovid decides he doesn't like Jaskier anymore. So there's a whole load of drama set up there that is really great. And then there was, Vilgefortz and Tissaia this season. So Vilgefortz finally reveals his true colours and shows himself to be the villain. And I did a video previously, my last video was on why his villain introduction was so good, and they did it in the show, and it was marvellous. And Tissaia, I've always liked Tissaia, but this season she was incredible. I'm so sad she's gone. because by the end of the season she ends up killing herself because her whole life's work has fallen to pieces. The man she loved is revealed to be a scumbag. You know, she just can't deal with it anymore. She feels out of control. She feels useless. And I was so sad to see her gone because she was one of my favourite characters. She was one of my favourite side characters. So that was a shame. I'd also really like to say how great the story was this season. A lot of people seem to be still saying, just follow the books. And sure, there were some moments, especially in part 2, where I was like, that didn't happen in the books and that might have an influence later on. But this season, at least, if we're counting just this season, I saw a massive amount of backpedaling to get back from season 2 to sort of the status quo of the books so they could adapt it. And they did. They did the Fanid coup, they did the build-up with the ball before, then they've got Geralt and Brokilon afterwards. All of these things are parts of the book, which is more than could be said for a lot of the events in season 2, right? So I think this season is, if anything, a massive good omen for what's to come for the show, because they're following the books. They've got back on track. I'd also like to say that I was so happy to see Milva turn up in the last episode, and she was incredible. Her actress was amazing, and I'm so excited to see the Hansa come together in the next season, which should be adapting Baptism of Fire. And Regis will show up. It was so good, and I could ramble on for so long about why this is amazing. I mean, stand-up moments, the fight between Geralt and Vilgefortz, which is one of my favourite moments in the books, was incredible in the show. I said going in that I did not want Geralt to get a single hit in. I didn't want him to even graze Vilgefortz, and he didn't. He just got annihilated just like in the books, and it was so devastating. And there was also a scene in part 2. Oh, who am I kidding? Vilgefortz was also in part 2. In the second episode of part 2, where Jaskier goes into Brokilon Forest to meet Geralt and sings to the Dryads to make them lower their bows. And my favourite band in terms of music ever is The Amazing Devil, which is a band that Joey Beatty is in with another singer called Madeline Highland. It's like a folky, alternative rock kind of thing, and I love it. It's awesome, and yeah. So it's, of course, no surprise that whenever Jaskier starts singing, I'm like, yeah! But this moment in particular is really great for the character, especially because it shows how, even though, you know, he's the coward, he's kind of like the idiot, he's the comic relief, he can still use his talents, his musical talents, to be helpful, to get him places. And it was such an awesome moment, and I loved it. I really loved it. I also really liked the episode in which the Fanad Ball took place. The Fanad coup speaks for itself, it was amazing. But the ball itself, a lot of people criticise the structure of the episode, which repeated itself with the motif, all is not as it seems, throughout the whole thing. And people said it was frustrating, it was boring. I thought it was incredible. The whole time I was like, I love how they're unfolding this. Because the thing is that the Fanad Ball is a lot of talking. It's a lot of talking for about 20 pages in the books, roughly. That's an estimate. It felt like 20 pages. And so to do it this way, to hide information and then reveal it as it goes on, I thought it keeps watcher interest, because you're still finding stuff out continually and you're getting new perspectives to the events that you've seen take place already. So that was also an awesome episode. So as I said, I could go on and on about how this was amazing and everything I loved about it, but I will have to go into the negatives just to keep this a fair review. But I'm going to be honest with you, there are not as many negatives here as I think anyone would expect, because I love the Witcher books, I love the Witcher games, but I also love this show, and I still do. And so, even though I have to give some negatives to keep it a fair review, because there were some, there won't be as many as I'm sure a lot of people would give, because I really enjoyed the season. So as far as negatives are, there were still some changes from the books that weren't major things, because it wasn't like, Yennefer's going to kill Ciri or anything like that, but it was mainly towards the end of the season where there were minor changes involving the character Yennefer occurring, and it was like, ooh, well that's going to mean something later on, because here's the thing. In Time of Contempt, Yennefer goes completely incognito for about a whole book after the events of the coup. No one knows where she is, everyone thinks she's a traitoress, it's a whole thing, right? And in the show, she is still around, she is still liked by all the sorceresses, and if I read the scene right, her final scene in the season saw her setting up the Lodge of Sorceresses, which is meant to be Philippa Earhart's whole deal. That's why she's in the books. She's there to be the one who orchestrates, she does the coup, and then she does the lodge. That's her deal. And if Yennefer's doing it, it will change events in the books because obviously Yennefer is not well liked and that leads to events later on. But also I just don't know what Philippa is going to be doing. Then will there be like a battle for power between the two characters as they try to lead the lodge? We don't know, but it's that was a thing. And they also killed Rience in the Faned coup, which was an odd choice, but that, yeah, I think I don't mind it. Like, Rience doesn't do much in the books. He's in the scene I'm reading in the Tower of the Swallow now, but it looks like he's going to die by the end of it. So him being dead is fine. I mean, I don't know who they'll have to do the few small things that he does later on, but they can find someone. And apart from that, there was also Vilgefortz in Nilfgaard's court, which was odd because Vilgefortz right now is meant to be being hunted by the Emperor, but it might happen that Emir realises that Vilgefortz has supplied him with a fake Ciri, in which case he starts chasing Vilgefortz down and it all comes together. But that's me pointing out the things that really stood out to me. But those are just the main things that really stood out to me as moments that may lead to problems in book accuracy later on. But after seeing this season, I have complete faith that they will stick to the books. The showrunners can't keep this completely book accurate because the books have a lot of talking and a lot of downtime. And if people complain that Ciri's episode in the Korath Desert, which was awesome by the way, was boring, and then I don't know, that's the books. It's long periods of the same thing happening. You know, scenes are long. There's long conversations. You know, so you have to adapt it slightly unfaithfully to keep it interesting. And with Yennefer, it makes sense that they haven't got rid of her because for this entire series, Yennefer has been in it more than she's ever been in the books. In the books, she'll go whole books without appearing. Here, she's a main character, and so it makes sense that they're going to stick with that. You know, they can't just now have her disappear for half a season and then turn up at the end of season 4, right? Because that wouldn't make sense for how they've been doing the show so far. So I think that this is a good omen. This is a really good sign from where the show's going to be going, and I really enjoyed watching it, and I'm really excited to see everything that happens. I'm just going to flip Andrew Garfield back over because I like him being on the happy side, and this isn't really a criticism, but regarding Henry Cavill leaving the show, I was really sad when I read the post for that. I think I cried, actually. It was, like, earlier this year. But I'm not one of the people who sits there and goes, without Henry there's no Witcher, because I think that undermines the work of the rest of the cast, who are incredible. The rest of the cast are incredible, and I think that they can more than easily carry the show without Henry Cavill being the main character. I mean, Henry Cavill is amazing, and I want to drive that home. I love him as Geralt, he did an amazing job, but I think writing off Liam, writing off the rest of the cast and saying that the show's dead without him is an exaggeration, and I'm excited to see Liam play the character, and I'm excited to see the rest of the cast continue to play theirs. I'm really excited. So I'll end the review there, and I'll give the season a 7.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed this. There were moments where I was like, oh, I didn't like that, but for the most part, this was really good, and it made me so happy to see them start getting closer to the books and stop talking about monoliths just for 1 second. So yeah, I mean, it was an improvement on Season 2, it was definitely not Blood Origins, so in that case, it's far better than I could have wanted it to be, and for that I'm really happy. So I'm going to upload a review tomorrow, reviewing the Tower of the Swallow, which I have almost finished. I'm going to get my head down and finish that today, and I'll get a review to you tomorrow, and we'll talk about that. So until then, thank you for watching, and I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye.